All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Biohacking Beauty Podcast, where every conversation is designed to empower you with the very best in beauty and wellness insights. I'm your host, Amitay Eshel, co-founder and CEO of Young Goose, the cutting-edge biohacking skincare brand. Today, we embark on a journey unlike any other, one that intertwines the elegance of nature's rhythms with our daily habits. I'm thrilled to share this episode with the ever brilliant Anastasia Khojaeva, a mastermind in biology, biohacking, and integral pillar at Young Goose. Her prowess extends not only in shaping the revolutionary skincare solutions we offer, but also in understanding the very fabric of our biological existence. Today, we're discussing, dear listeners, a deep dive into cycle syncing. It's a fascinating approach that aligns diet, exercise, and most crucially for us, skincare, with the phases of the menstrual cycle for obviously for women. Now, you might wonder, how can one's menstrual cycle impact skincare choices? Well, just as the moon's phases exert an undeniable influence on Earth's tide, so do the menstrual cycle's phases play an undeniable role in a woman's overall well-being, including her skin's health. But before we get started in this illuminating conversation with Anastasia, here's a heartfelt review from one of our cherished biohacking beauty listeners. Loved the retinol podcast and would love one on L-ascorbic acid as mentioned. Thank you. I'm putting it out here because this lovely person just asked it in a bunch of different places. And I promise we will do a podcast about L-ascorbic acid. But that's the way to do it. Leaving a review, we're for sure going to see it and respond. Aside from that, as a gentle reminder, if you find value in our content, please take a moment to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening on or viewing this podcast. Each word of appreciation propels us to delve deeper and bring more groundbreaking insights to you. So, without further ado, let's embark on this enlightening exploration of cycle syncing, the science behind it, and how it intertwines with our skincare choices with the one and only Anastasia Khojaeva. We are so lucky. We have Anastasia Khojaeva again with us.
I hope the listeners are not tired of you.
What are you talking about?
But hi everyone. I'm just so happy to be back again. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so today we actually have probably one of the most important podcasts.
I know it's most anticipated.
Most anticipated for sure. And that is because we are talking about cycle syncing. So, Anastasia, it's obviously incredible to have you here. I feel like, you started talking to us, talking to people in the community about cycle syncing a few years ago, where it wasn't something that people talked about, and now we see influencers talking about it. We see, people dedicating their whole social media pages to it, writing books about it. So I'm very glad that you're here to talk to us today about that specifically, or in more general terms, but also about skin cycle syncing. So maybe we should start with just giving a few a basic review of what cycle syncing is, or even more than that, let's talk about a few of the nuances of the menstrual cycle.
For sure. And I will say that I also had to find my knowledge somewhere. So besides just having the understanding of biology and studying it at school, I also base a lot of the things that we're going to be talking today about on the work of Alice Vitti and her book In the Flow. I also really loved a recent book by Dr. Mindy Pels about Fast Like a Girl. She does talk about how you can fast with with regards to your menstrual cycle, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention our
That she
friend.
uses our products. No, okay.
She does use our products. She literally just had a retreat, and our products were used there for the attendees. But I also wanted to mention our friend Kyla Osterhoff, and she has been talking about cycle syncing for a really, really, really long time. So I do wanna pay the homage to all those impressive ladies.
You can find her at
BioCurious Kayla.
yeah, that's it. I used to butcher that name a little bit.
Well, so for those of you who don't really know what cycle syncing is about, so the menstrual cycle is much more nuanced than just menstruating or not menstruating. It involves waves of hormonal shifts throughout the entire 28-ish days that affect your mood, your energy levels, your appetite, and much more. So the movement of cycle syncing was formed. It's a concept referring to eating, exercising, and resting based on your cycle and your phases. So if you are able to better understand your body and the hormonal shifts, your hormonal levels at certain times throughout the cycle, then you can take control. You can take control of your physiology, your emotions, and so many things that come with it, be it fatigue, be it hunger. Everything just works better once you understand your cycle.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about let's do like a cycle syncing 101, let's talk a little bit about the different phases. If someone doesn't know them, I'm sure they're going to then discover that they're everywhere in social media. And also, obviously, if you could go over some of the things that you mentioned, like resting, dieting, etc. So maybe we should start with the basic course.
For sure. So when it comes to our skin, the hormones 101 will be the three hormones that impact our skin during the monthly cycle is estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone.
But don't you think it's kind of more important first to even talk about like what are the four cycles, like what they are?
Absolutely, absolutely. So day 1 to 6, we have our menstrual phase, and that's the bleeding phase of the cycle. So that's when we are shedding the uterine lining, and we'll talk in detail about what happens in each phase. But then afterwards, we have our follicular phase, and that is going on. So when we talk about dates, it's all relative, but about 5 days. And then we have the ovulatory phase where we release an egg, and that's usually on average about 3 days. And then you have your luteal phase, which is the longest phase. And for some women, it can take up to 2 weeks. And I'm just very conscious of not saying exact dates because things vary. The individuality, bio-individuality of women, it's very important to not forget about it. But yeah, so in every single one of those four phases, we have major fluctuations of the three hormones I mentioned, the estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, and we will talk about other hormone surgeries such as luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone. So that all affects how we function and our physiology. And then to support and balance yourself, you can choose particular foods, which we will mention, that just will support your fluctuations of hormones and keep it in a way that you feel more balanced and at equilibrium. And then you can also adjust how you rest, how you exercise. And then, since we're here serving people for their skincare needs and skincare education, we'll also talk about how those hormones affect your skin health and your skin composition.
Fantastic. Yeah. And the reason I think it became popular, this cycle syncing, I would call it like movement, is because people really got results, not necessarily only also, but not only in their, in the stability of their menstruation, obviously less pain, less side effects that are involved with it, um, but also they managed the symptoms, as you said, that are associated with different parts of the cycle, right?
What is it that
I'm
you were
saying like
saying?
that obviously, I remember when you started getting into it, it was a lot because you wanted, an easier menopause, sorry, not menopause, like easier menstrual time.
Yes, yeah. So personally, yeah, the reason I got into cycle syncing is that I've always had really difficult periods. Like I was in pain, and yeah, my cramps were just out of this world. And I don't know if that's the place to talk about the flow, but had the very heavy flow, and uh, and speaking like just checking myself through like the blood panel, and my hormonal levels were really good. I didn't have any deficiencies. I like there was nothing like outside, like there was no ongoing health issues that I encountered. But that's me. That's why I got into it. I did, and then if you go to conventional OBGYN, unfortunately, most OBGYNs still don't really talk about cycle syncing or know much about it. They obviously know of different phases of the cycle, but more just for how reproduction works, and less of how it can alleviate, the PMS symptoms and etc. But many other women got into cycle syncing because they had real issues. So they had things like PCOS and endometriosis. So again, that also, if you are listening and you have any of those, which is very, very prevalent in the United States, I highly recommend getting into cycle syncing just to see if you can help those conditions, because it's been helpful for many.
And that's kind of what I was saying before, that, for a lot of people, it's not necessarily only about their period. They feel better during the other times of the month, the other phases of their cycle. So they kind
Yes.
of start to see benefits in other ways. And
Absolutely, yes. And then also for high performing women, women that, are really entrepreneurs or executives, there's so much you can learn about just the innate capabilities of women, and for leadership and for intuition, and you can tap into those areas more when in particular phases. And this podcast is really not, it would be very difficult to take the whole cycle syncing concept and boil it down to 40-minute podcast. But I really hope that through everything I'm going to share today, you can at least get curious enough to check it out for yourself, because it is very helpful to live in tune with your cycle. And most books for cycle syncing, that especially the recent ones that get published, they also can really help you understand, like if you are on the pill or you barely have a cycle, still how can you differentiate some of the phases, and figure out what to do better and how to accommodate your own body better. And then if you're someone who's trying to conceive, that's also something really important in preparation for that, that can lead to easier pregnancy down the road. Just like once you figure out your cycle, and you get really in tune with it, and you just, you know, you might be doing something, um, such as, drinking cold drinks during luteal phase, where you should be only getting warm foods, ideally. Yes, spoiler alert. Just changing some of the habits, um, you know, at certain times of the month can make a huge impact. And
Yes.
I really
And
can't,
I'll say a few
explain it
things.
enough.
Like it can really assist weight loss. Okay, just like if we could boil it down to that, if it assists weight loss, it can improve like skin health and youthfulness. So even if for vain reasons, it's a great idea to get into the movement of cycle syncing. But I think maybe to give context for people who are skeptical about an an emergence of a movement out of seemingly thin air, I would like to explain that science actually doesn't like women as test subjects in general, and the reason is because of that of the fact that as a hormonal makeup, you're actually a different person at each and every stage of your cycle. So if we have, a monthly or a long-term study, it is very difficult to infer information from women, because each woman, obviously, unless we're extremely lucky in the sense of the study, each woman is in a different stage of the cycle, has a different hormonal makeup. So normally men were better test subjects, so the information about women and women's health is much more scarce, and that's why this movement took such a long time. I think, you mentioned Miss Vidi, what's her name? Alisa Vidi. So she talks a lot about biohacking. It's connected that these the consciousness, the elevation of consciousness as far as like individual health and health optimization really brought this into the forefront, and that's what we're going to do here today. So we've spent like 15 minutes, beating around the bush, no pun intended, but let's get a little bit into the different cycles. So let's start obviously with days like 1 to 5. Classically, some people call it the inner winter. So so let's talk a little bit about the overview of what is the menstrual phase and the hormonal state that people are on when they're in the menstrual phase.
For sure. So the menstrual phase kicks off the whole menstrual cycle. This is when the endometrium, the lining of the uterus, sheds, causing us to bleed. So, speaking of hormones, at this time, the estrogen and progesterone are both low, and that's likely will affect your mood and energy. So that also is going to be lower. And then it's important to know that you can actually help yourself by eating warm foods, especially those high in iron, which kind of makes sense, with the loss of blood, because of to replace any iron loss during the bleeding. And as a tip, you can always pair iron-rich foods with a source of vitamin C for easier absorption. So yeah, some of the foods to keep in mind will be grass-fed beef, turkey, lentils, molasses, oysters. If you are supplementing, make sure you take your vitamin C. Um, Always important to stay hydrated, but especially in menstrual phase. If you stay hydrated, it helps to minimize bloating, headaches, and always try to avoid inflammatory foods like salt, sugar, and caffeine. But especially during menstrual phase, if you're able to lower that intake even more, that will really help you get through the menstrual phase easier. And then I would like to also mention some tips for the exercising. So since the energy is pretty low, you shouldn't really push yourself, out of your comfort zone during your menstrual cycle. Like if you, it's okay if you just want to do an easier movement, maybe yoga, maybe just a walk. And then again, by individuality plays a role. I know some women that like to exercise during menstrual cycle. It works for them, but they're really not the majority. And I've attended enough cycle syncing talks, and so expert talking about. So the consensus here is that during your monthly bleed, that's the time the nature kind of didn't mean for you to exercise. And we actually were once at a panel about cycle syncing together. I don't know if you remember, but there was a lady that practiced Eastern medicine, like Chinese medicine, and she was talking about how it, because of the flow, it all goes down, and if you exercise, you kind of mess with that energy. So
Was it in Austin? In the
yeah,
I remember.
MSW, yeah.
Yeah. So, but something I would say an anecdote there about exercise. It seems to me, and that's again super anecdotal, but it seems to me that people who have been practicing cycle syncing for a while, it's almost like unanimous that they're saying, yeah, I didn't like working out, or I felt that it's not good for me for a long time, but now that I've been cycle syncing for a while, I feel like the last like 2-3 days of my menstrual cycle are days that I do want to get out of the proverbial bed and train harder than I did before my cycle was completely synced, if you would.
Well, and that goes hand in hand with alleviation of the symptoms. So personally, it's exactly how it happened to me. Like in the past, yeah, sometimes I would just feel handicapped. Like I would have to stay in bed. I was just like in so much pain during during the 5 days of the bleed, and for me it was in 6 days. And there was no way I could go for a harder workout. Um, Down the road, as I started finally getting like painless periods, which was something I didn't think even exist. I was able to go to the gym. I was still not pushing myself too hard, but I could do bar, I could do Pilates, I could do yoga, which
You can always do the Stairmaster, I feel like.
Stairmaster. Yes, I mean, you're right. Better than not doing anything if you're in bed suffering from pain.
Yeah, definitely. So okay, we talked about like in general, like how this the why is it called the inner winter, by the way?
Well, it's it's the time that you want to just be cozy in bed,
Okay, got it. So I actually wanted to ask about skincare. So let's talk about like
hibernating.
hibernating for sure. But skin conditions during that phase, how does it look like?
Yeah, so the way it affects the skin. So first of all, on the first day of the period, all of the hormones will be at ultimate low, and the sebum production, like our natural oil that is released by the skin, will also be low. So it's common that your skin will feel drier during your menstrual phase. Again, that there's without the help of estrogen, it will be very hard to retain moisture. So the skin also might feel more reactive and sensitive. And that's actually because of the release of prostaglandins that make you more sensitive to pain. So it's a good idea to skip any painful procedures. So if you're planning to walk, so do laser treatment, probably not the best week for that. And then in terms of skincare tips, that's the best time to go for your nourishing, hydrating products. So go for your heavier serum, heavier moisturizer. Look out for your hyaluronic acid-based products.
Is that also because of like the lack of estrogen, like the dip of estrogen?
Yes.
Okay.
So the low level of estrogen, that's every time somebody has estrogen of balance and lower than normal, they will actually have dry skin.
What about pimples, acne. Is that common in menstrual phase?
So the pimples and acne are common in menstrual phase, but they start out in luteal phase, which is the phase before. So we'll get there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So what about like, again, skincare tips and recommendations? That would be heavier moisturizers, more hydrating products. If we talk about Young Goose products, I'm assuming we're talking about if someone has like our limited edition Love Cleanser, that might be like their cleanser of choice that time of the month.
But luckily, even our adaptogenic cleanser is super, super gentle.
100%. Yeah. And then we have obviously our adaptogenic HA firming boost. We have our our BioC peptide spray. I guess it's okay.
Yeah.
Bio barrier, our
Very is great. Yeah.
biohack your skin barrier, hydrating serum, and then obviously care moisturizer, hyperbaric mask.
Yeah.
If someone really wants to go heavy on the moisturizer, they can use Biomarine, I guess. And yeah, anything else?
Well, speaking of like just being more sensitive to pain, I think I would skip doing our exfoliators. So I would skip nail polish because it's scrubby. And I would even skip the clay mask on the menstrual phase because it does have salicylic acid, so it might tingle a little bit. And on other days, like of days of other phases, other days of the cycle, you wouldn't even maybe notice it. But
would you say like if someone had to have exfoliation for whatever reason, maybe they're maybe they're on the oilier side as a whole, maybe that's part of their routine, maybe that's the time like to opt for like the detox ritual instead of the nail polish if they have both?
Yes, they could do that, and then also
or just go for the I guess for the retinol.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, since our retinol is just so nourishing, and if you already past the retinization part where you might be sensitive to retinol, you won't even feel it. Yeah,
Gotcha.
It's very hydrating.
Okay, so now we're kind of advancing to the follicular phase. Classically, we're talking about like day 6 to day 14 of the menstrual cycle. Let's talk a little bit about the hormonal state at that point of the month and how significant others should prepare. That's when we get the nicest version of your partner, right?
The follicular and the ovulatory, it's the best time, yeah, for sure. So that's the phase when the lining of the uterus starts to grow again, and a hormone called FSH, follicle stimulating hormone, is being released. So it prompts follicles to grow in the ovaries, and one of those follicles will form a mature egg. So you can think of follicular phase as the inner spring. So we're going out of winter, we're going out of being in the shell, and we start to, sprout. So this phase begins after your period until ovulation, and estrogen levels are slowly beginning to rise to prepare your body for healthy ovulation. And yes, indeed, everything starts to look brighter, our mood is better, and energy levels go up, so we're probably nicer to our partners. Yeah, that's the time. And also, you can choose certain foods to better support your hormonal balance at this time. That's actually a really good time for broccoli, arugula, lean proteins such as fish and chicken, as opposed to like heavy red meat in the menstrual or luteal phase. And then in terms of exercising, that's when you can, the follicular and the ovulatory phases both is when you can go. So the follicular in general is where you can do more cardio, and the ovulatory is the best for like weightlifting. I'm kind of going ahead for the next phase, but okay. Speaking of the skin, So at the end of the period, since the estrogen levels start to rise again, this hormone stimulates collagen, elastin, and hyaluronic acid production. So thereby it improves skin structural integrity and moisture retention. So the skin starts to look better. It's like follicular phase is like the golden week of our skin. It looks the best. And it's also the best time to build, restore, nourish it. And then that's the time that your skin can tolerate more invasive procedures and harder ingredients, like more potent ingredients. So if you're somebody that doesn't use retinol, that's the good time to try it. And then, speaking of
Someone does, by the way. Is it a time where you can increase your retinol use?
yeah, you can increase your retinol use and your skin will be able to cope with it really well. And then I know a lot of our listeners might have radio frequency devices, microneedling. So that's also a great time to anything collagen boosting. Like that's the window for it.
Got it. So, very interesting. So we're talking about collagen stimulation. Going, maybe that would be if you're going and doing some rejuvenating facial once a month, like with a professional, or once every couple of weeks. I mean, that's a good time to aim for that treatment, which is actually something that I'm sure the professionals here that are listening to us, that's like an amazing way to differentiate yourself from other professionals. If you're obviously a client, that's an amazing way for you to, again, like biohack your skincare routine, is aiming for those two phases for your more stimulatory treatments, whether it's like professional microneedling, again, radio frequency, whatever that may be.
Yeah, and in general, the cycle syncing is becoming more and more mainstream. For example, I've seen an article about it like 2 years ago on the Equinox app. They didn't go too in depth, and they still don't have, let's say, I think if I was the Equinox founder, I would
Shh, don't tell them. I'm kidding. You
I
can tell.
would already have it on the schedule, on the class schedule, like, hey, here's the HIIT workout, and then probably say like invest in your ovulatory phase or something. No, I would just have it as part of the guidelines or
I
but
can also see like restaurants, like what's the name of the restaurant in Boca?
true food.
True Food Kitchen, having like this dish fits your follicular phase.
Yeah, they really should. But the people like the followers of the cycle thinking, and myself included in that list. Now, when I look for any kind of provider, like let's say a personal trainer, I am looking at cycle syncing informed for cycle syncing informed personal trainer. Or if I was to look for nutritionist, I would definitely look for cycle syncing informed nutritionist. And
Is your personal trainer, by the way, informed?
yes, yes,
Okay, yeah.
Jacqueline, shout out to Jacqueline.
Shout out.
And then like when I was looking, like when I started doing cycle syncing and I asked my OBGYN about it, she knew very little. Like she definitely doesn't have it as part of her practice. And I was looking for an informed one, and like in all of South Florida, I was able to find just one person that actually, educated herself on this matter. So I think yes, for any nutritionists that are listening to us now, any kind of coach, any kind of provider, I think if you are not educating or incorporating cycle syncing in whatever that you teach, you will benefit from doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so just to recap, day 6 to 14, we have our inner spring. Everything starts to bloom. We want to eat like lean protein. What veggies? You said like
Broccoli, radicchio, coniferous.
carnivorous vegetables, my favorites. And yeah, so that was dietary advice. We have increased energy, so we can push it a little bit more in the gym. You said more cardio or more like
Intensity,
weightlifting?
like you can
Okay.
do higher
Oh,
intensity
okay.
workout.
Sounds good. And again, like and going for more collagen stimulation, we can reap more benefits there.
Yeah.
So we can push our skin further.
You can just think of it like you can push yourself more
Yes.
in all aspects of
Okay.
your life.
Okay, so now we get to our ovulatory phase, which is traditionally day 15 to 17. It's a short phase.
Yeah, that's why I kind of was grouping into the follicular phase a little bit, because it kind of like doesn't have, it has a very distinct physiological distinction, because that's when you release an egg. And if you're trying to get pregnant, that's the time, to get it fertilized. But then in terms of how everything presents itself, it's like a slightly upgraded follicular phase. It's like follicular phase was building for the ovulatory phase.
That's our joke with our friend Yegor. That my joke is that we have our partners one day, one day follicular, one day ovulatory, and then the rest is luteal and menstrual. But that feels like very short. And when you're having fun, things seem shorter as well. So okay, so let's take a little bit a deeper look about hormones and what it means.
For sure. So during the ovulatory phase, a hormone called LH, luteinizing hormone, is being released. And well, it surges, and then the egg is being released, which is an ovulation. And this is the time of your cycle that you can think of it as summer. And it's also short. It's also always feels, summer feels so short and too short. And it's also when you are like at the state when you feel hot, like your actual internal temperature is higher. So if you really love cold foods, sashimi and just that's the best time where you can eat something cold to like balance your temperature.
Also sashimi because of fatty acids, right?
That too, but in general, like when you just start cycle syncing, there is like a whole guidebook, and it's a good idea to be pretty rigorous and disciplined. And I remember, like, I'm somebody who I just want to drink juices all day, eat salads, and I don't know, drink iced tea. Like, I like, oh, also we live in Miami, like, I just like cold foods. But unfortunately, that's the only best time for it, because a lot of the other times, your body just, receives better warm foods, and doesn't matter the climate. So the estrogen is at its highest point during ovulation, and progesterone and testosterone are on the rise. And so in terms of how we're going to eat, we're going to go for the vegetables that such as cucumbers, peppers, romaine, dark colored berries. So you can kind of see the distinction there from the previous food choices. So they are the best to help you maintain that balance. In terms of protein, salmon, and other foods with high fatty acids, like we mentioned, like fish, is really going to help. Then always a good idea to avoid high glycemic foods, but
high glycemic foods means high carb, sugar content.
processed foods.
Obviously, for our skin and segueing for the skin, they create AGEs, advanced glycation end products, which kind of attach to collagen and denature it and make it more rigid and create wrinkles and thin skin and all the good stuff. So stay away from sugar, kids.
Yeah, and if you want to learn more about everything that Amitay just said, you can listen to the episode with Sandra Kaufman that he recorded. They went on a deep dive about AGEs.
Well, with Sandy, you have a 5-minute deep dive, and then we go to the next subject immediately. But but that's a great episode, Dr. Sandra Kaufman, Kaufman Protocol. So that's great. What about anything else before we go touch on skincare for ovulatory phase?
Well, just we can mention again the exercise recommendations. So the estrogen surge that occurs directly before ovulation can provide big energy boost. So this is the time for your cycle to do something high intensity, like maybe high intensity cycling class or HIIT class.
Lift some weights.
Lift some weights. Yep.
Okay, great. So what about skin care tips?
Yes, so at ovulation, your estrogen remains elevated, so your body begins to produce luteinizing hormone, which we mentioned, and that can actually, for our skin, mean oilier skin and an increased chance of blemishes. However, most people, that's the window of time when they just have this glowing, radiant skin. Again, a little bit oilier, but you might just notice that you have that radiance about you. And, you know, thinking of that fact that you're just more prone to oil secretion on your skin, it's a good time to keep your makeup light, your skincare light, like lightweight. So at Young Goose, we do have our Pro Care Analytic Serum that is perfect for this state. It's perfect in general, in my opinion, but it does have the properties of balancing extra oil, and it's very lightweight texture.
Would you say that in general, like as far as like using Yango's products, it's almost like your skincare routine is almost identical, just the serum changes throughout the.
Yes, yes. So, we have shared like cycle syncing skincare protocols on our Instagram before. And the good news is that you still keep the same cleanser, moisturizer, like everything, all the bases stay the same. Same, what you change is your treatment serum. And yeah, you just alternate between something a little bit lighter to a little bit hydrating, and
Okay.
then yeah,
So if we go back to like, sorry, let's say we go back to menstrual phase, that would be, as we said, that would be more like the biobarrier and adaptogenic HA firming boost,
yeah, yeah.
and
So if
then
you like prefer water-based products, here's your HA serum, and maybe that's what you already have at home. If you're somebody that really like heavier textures and just want something maybe lipid soluble, so biobarrier is the oil-based serum, like
yeah. What about like so again we have like our follicular and ovulatory phase that would be more like lighter serums like ProCare.
yeah, you can use Procare. We also mentioned that in follicular phase um, is the best window of time for retinol, but in
Yes,
general,
correct. Yeah.
for since the best routine would be to have a Procare in the morning and retinol at night. If somebody already has those two, you can just continue using it in that fashion. Just be mindful that during your menstrual phase, your skin might be a little bit drier. So if you have biobarrier additional, like if you're listening to our podcast and you're somebody that has our advanced anti-aging system, you already have all three there. So that's now you know how you can sequence them better.
Got it. So okay. And then days 18 to 28, unfortunately the longest period, no pun
Yeah.
intended, we have our luteal phase.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the luteal phase, the hormonal makeup there, how the partner feels during that time.
So during the luteal phase, the released egg travels from the ovary to the uterus through the fallopian tubes. After this, the egg may be fertilized by the sperm, resulting in pregnancy. And if you don't become pregnant, then it becomes your period. You start to shed your uterine lining, and then obviously, hormonally, that's when that estrogen, um, progesterone begins to rise and estrogen goes down. So this is when you're most likely to experience the symptoms of PMS and things like bloating, swelling, mood swings, fatigue, if you don't cycle sync, and the good outcome of successful cycle syncing is usually that actually you don't experience those, and it's a huge relief. Yeah, and obviously, as mentioned, if you're somebody that experiences mood swings and fatigue, you might be slightly less nice to your partner. So
The inner autumn.
Yeah, that's the inner atom of the body for sure. Yeah, that's when we.
That's when we see red, right? Like in the autumn, we have red leaves. That's where we see red. But anyway, so let's talk about foods a little bit. We talked, about the hormonal part of it, but let's talk about foods. How do we support that?
Well, it's a good idea to incorporate foods high in B6 and vitamin C, as these help to support progesterone levels. You may also crave more wormy, higher fat foods during this time, like stews and soups. And that's actually the most recommended type of food for luteal phase. So, as opposed to ovulatory phase, where your temperature is a little bit colder, internal temperature, and the luteal phase is a little bit hotter. Sorry,
Follicular.
I meant to say the opposite. So your internal temperature is actually lower. So when you eat warmer foods, you warm yourself up. That's what I wanted to say.
So vodka drinking would be during that time, like according to Eastern European tradition.
Um, probably in Eastern European tradition where we recommend borscht, but we just recommend it all the time. So yeah, and in my books you can cure anything with.
Yes, exactly. That's true.
Yes. Yes, it's in terms of protein. That's actually similar to menstrual phase. It's a good time to eat, a broth, bone broth, like meat. You can also opt for proteins that are high in B6. I think I already mentioned it. So salmon, chickpeas, turkey, foods high in vitamin C, like lemons, kiwis, peppers. Don't forget your fiber. So whole grains, legumes.
Hummus in the Middle East. Okay, what about exercise?
Yeah, and in terms of exercise, so your energy is definitely lower during luteal phase. So you can lean into walks, Pilates, yoga. It's going to be like lower intensity than follicular phase or ovulatory phase that you can afford.
Hmm. Okay, so that was about like everything around, but let's talk about skincare in that phase. So we mentioned the fact that we have our estrogen decline on the decline, and progesterone on the rise. So how does it look as far as the behavior of our skin and what we need to do to counter that or to support that?
Yeah, so progesterone stimulates sebum production, which causes your skin to swell. You may notice more whiteheads, blackheads. High levels of progesterone are also linked to secretion of melanin. So you have higher chances of developing pigmentation. So just by, what I just said, you can think, okay, blemishes and pigmentation. So what do I do to avoid blemishes? So it's a good idea to um, make sure that you use products that are antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory. So if we're talking about like sequencing our serums, and let's say maybe you have our green tea fighter serum, which although we formulated for improving the effects of red light therapy, the inherent property of green tea is being antimicrobial, antibacterial. And our green tea also has clinical data to be helpful for acne patients. So there you go. That's a great one to use at this
There
stage.
you go.
If you if you watch the Greek wedding, that's where the joke comes from.
There you go.
And then sun protection. Sun protection is important. And we have spoken a lot about the benefits of using BioShield SPF 40 all throughout every season and any part of the day, indoor and outdoor. This does not only protect you from the sun, but in this particular case, we are talking about your skin being more sensitive to the sun. So definitely make sure that you do wear your sun protection.
Okay, that's kind of concludes the conversation about the phases. And this is, we really delved deep into the phases and how skincare can be combined to create a routine that supports the different phases, in communicates with the expression or the expression of hormones in your skin and on your skin. And I feel we did a really good job, or you did a really good job, kind of keeping it simple, keeping it serum oriented, even though in the beginning we said, oh, you can use a mask, you can use this, that. Think really, Yangus is built to be a very coherent system where most products you can use all the time. But again, our serums really are the ones that give that personalization which we need when we talk about skin sync, cycle syncing in the skin. Come on, man. Anyway,
Yes.
um,
And I think, as you have said it many times, and I think we've heard it first from Kyla Osterhoff, that every woman really is like four women, in the span of her cycle. So it really pays a lot to pay attention to yourself, and try to like listen to your body. So in when you get in tune with your cycle, you will be able to pay attention more to any kind of changes that's happening with you, and your skin, as we've talked throughout this episode, doesn't stay the same because of the hormone levels. So they're really fluctuating, and they affect your skin composition. So while we're often asked for like a skincare routine, and it would be wonderful if you could use just the same products in a span of 30 days, every month, and your skin, changes the composition. And what I'm saying is that it's just a good idea to pay attention to it, and hopefully now you know also what to look out for. And there's small tweaks that you can do of, maybe adding an extra layer of moisturizer during your menstrual phase, or switching a serum if you have an opportunity to use a couple of serums. But at least just knowing what to expect from your skin, so you don't feel like it works against you.
yeah, I would also say, you're going to use the same amount of products in the end of the day, but it might be a smarter and a more expensive choice to kind of arm yourself with those different serums that we mentioned to be able to cycle sync. So if you use 1 week, more retinol than you would in the other times of the month, and then you use green tea phyto serum in your luteal phase, and you use ProCare in your ovulatory phase, etc., etc., etc. You're going to be you're going to be spending the same amount of money. You're just obviously spending it all in the beginning of starting to cycle sync your skincare routine. But at the end of the day, it's the same amount you would have spent anyways, and you're going to get better results that way. Everything else stays the same. So that's something I would highly recommend to give a chance to, because it's the results that we've seen, either from, obviously I don't need to sync my cycles, but from you, Anastasia, and anyone that has gone and done that routine, it seems incredible. So yeah, for sure. Yeah, any final thoughts?
No, I really hope that it was interesting. I hope it was educational. I hope it wasn't too overwhelming. And I hope it spiked just interest to the cycle syncing if you are not cycle syncing yet. Because then again, just for your overall wellness, I can't recommend it enough. There is really no drawbacks to it. Like if you incorporate cycle syncing method in your day-to-day life, the worst that's going to happen, you might not feel the amazing benefits that people that were already initially in more painful state felt. But you are doing something really good for your body long term.
Amen. Amen. Maybe that's why women, by the way, are better multitaskers, because you're actually four women in one, whereas men, we only have one.
Um,
Anyway,
yeah.
guys and girls, thank you very much for joining us for another amazing uh, podcast together with Anastasia Khojaeva, obviously the incredible biohacker, biologist, president, and chief scientific officer here at Young Goose. And if you like our products and you like Anastasia Khojaeva, let me tell you. Yeah, normally we answer questions, but again, this podcast was basically frequently asked questions about cycle syncing. So we're going to skip that for now. Again, if you found this podcast to be beneficial and you're not waking from a long slumber to still hear us talking, it means that something helped you. It can help many other people, but the only way we can do that is if we become more popular and the different algorithms recommend us. You know how that happens? If you actually like, if you share, if you leave a review, a comment, give us 5 stars and a review. And again, if you have any burning questions that you want us to answer, the best way to do it is by writing your question in a review on Apple Podcasts or anywhere else you're viewing or listening to this. So make sure you do it. Even a one-word review makes a world of difference. So anything else, Anastasia?
I just wanted to add that also we try to bring you the most interesting and beneficial topics. But if you have some subject that you want us to discuss on the podcast, we're welcome all the ideas for future podcasts, including other guests you want us to interview. Just shoot them in the comments to the podcast. We're here to serve you.
Yeah. And thank you everyone for suggesting Andrew Huberman. He is not a poet. So maybe if you write a comment and a review, maybe we're going to be big enough and Andrew Huberman is going to come on the podcast. Anyway, thank you everyone, and we'll see you here next time.
See you next time.
Bye.